Proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order.
So I want to say that...
Order, Senators. Order, Senators. Order, Senators. Order, Senators. Honestly, you are not going to tell the Speaker how to run the House. We have an order paper. Let us respect our standing orders and the standing orders and the order paper. Senator Msuruve.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that...
What's your point of order, Senator Murkomen?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't know if I'm in order. I will need your direction and guidance. The mood in the House, Mr. Speaker, not just in the House, but the mood in the country is that we came here to discuss the division of revenue, Mr. Speaker, among counties. And Mr. Speaker, although petitions are very important and all of them are in the order paper, including the formula itself, Mr. Speaker, am I in order to suggest that, Mr. Speaker, we progress first to the question of division of revenue among counties, then we come back to continue progressing with the business of dealing with petitions, Mr. Speaker, because Kenyans are waiting our decision and counties have been waiting our decision, and Mr. Speaker, particularly because there is a false accusation out there that this House is not ready to make a decision, that we are the ones, Mr. Speaker, who are delaying this decision. I want Kenyans to know that we are very eager and anxious to dispense with this matter, Mr. Speaker, and then we progress. So am I in order to request, Mr. Speaker, for that rearrangement of the order paper?
Okay, I'll give direction in a few minutes. In the meantime, Senator Msuruve, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to actually support this important petition that affects millions and millions of Kenyans. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that universal health care is important, and there are Kenyans who have chronic diseases. There are Kenyans who, suffer from blood pressure. There are some Kenyans also who need dialysis on a weekly basis. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that so many families are suffering out there, because sometimes you'll find that the head of the family is supposed to actually look for money for dialysis, and he is not covered. So there's need to ensure that the NHIF covers, dialysis patients, so that these families are cushioned. And even as I speak about dialysis patients, Honorable Speaker, there are also patients who are suffering from cancer, and no one cares about them. There's need for NHIF to ensure that it is doing something about Kenyans. I want to say that as a Senate, we have to see how to cushion many families, and I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that there are so many Kenyans out there who are working with their diseases, and nobody cares at all. So there's need for this petition to be taken to the right of the committee, and there's need for the committee to ensure that it expedites, that it ensures that it is covering Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, it is our honors to ensure that we are supporting the common man out there. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. I support this petition.
Senator Linturi. Linturi? Or you didn't want to?
Mr. Speaker, let me agree with the sentiments or the comments made by Senator Mwaura in this petition. And further, Mr. Speaker, state that the universal health care, which is one of the big four agendas of the President of this Republic, Mr. Speaker, is something that we cannot wish away. is something that is so important to this country, Mr. Speaker. However, Mr. Speaker, I would want to, Mr. Speaker, to say clearly, if we are really to succeed in ensuring there is universal health care in this country, some bit of transparency is highly required, honesty and genuineness in the manner in which we conduct ourselves in terms of advice to our patients, how hospitals treat our patients, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether people are aware that right now, even those that are covered under NHIF, when you get admitted to any of our hospitals in this country, there is something that they call pre-authorization before any hospital accepts to treat you. But the sad thing, Mr. Speaker, is that, Mr. Speaker, even after treatment, patients are being forced to stay in hospitals, in the hospitals, awaiting payment from NHIF because they are sent or appear to not have enough sufficient money to guarantee claims that are being forwarded to them by hospitals. So, Mr. Speaker, we really need to think about this matter seriously. It is not easy, and the worst situation a person can be is a situation where one is sick and requires urgent treatment and there is nobody to show up to really support or offer that particular service, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, let me finally say that for those that have interacted with our level 5 hospitals, and I want to everybody else that is listening out there to really counter-check this information. Information is being shared by those people that work in different hospitals, that the suppliers of these UHC equipments or drugs that are supposed to be under that particular scheme, Mr. Speaker, are only dropped in hospitals. There are no deliveries being signed. There are no LOPOs, Mr. Speaker, and for that matter, our hospitals are not able to account for what is delivered to them. So, Mr. Speaker, as we think wholesomely on this particular matter, let us also ensure that there are proper systems to check on this, because otherwise, this may also end up being another big scandal, like the mess, like what is happening in Kemsa, because we are in a situation whereby nearly everything that is being done is demand-driven in terms of how much money we make from our poor and dying Kenyans. Thank you.
Professor Ongeri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to speak on an area that I'm an expert. I'm the one who started the renal biopsies in this country to be able to determine the level of renal disease in this country. And it was quite clear that far from the other causes that we were able to locate in Europe, in Africa, there were other tropical elements that led to the kidney failure. The situation here, Mr. Speaker, is that those who have kidney failure, they either will succumb and will develop what we call end-stage renal failure and die without any intervention. And if there is any intervention, and then through the dialysis that is being now provided by level 4 hospitals in each county, including some of those in level 5, can only be sustained if there is regular dialysis. The cost of dialysis is very expensive and therefore unsustainable for people who come from poor family. If they have a chance, there is a kidney match, a donor transplant is given. To maintain that transplant to be functional, you have got to give them what we call drugs that will suppress the reaction, what we call immunosuppressive agents. And therefore, again, these drugs are out of reach of ordinary mwananchi. They need to be monitored because sometimes there are complications that relate to some of these drugs. So, in short, Mr. Speaker, This petition has come in timely because quite a large percentage of our people are suffering from kidney failure. Some of them progress to renal transplants, which then becomes what we call maintenance immunosuppressive therapy. One of such drugs called cyclophosphamide is a fairly expensive drug and causes some complications and other related immunosuppressives that are now in the market that will sustain these patients' life for life. Fortunately, when these drugs are given in an appropriate measure and
what's your point of intervention, Senator Haji?
Interrupting my good friend, I don't know whether there's something wrong with the microphone here. I mean, there's a lot of vibration, and it's hurting us.
Okay, the technicians, you check the mics. Just proceed, Senator Ongero.
So, Mr. Speaker, it is important for the life-saving action to be taken, first of all, the course of drugs when they are attending the normal dialysis sessions. They need those drugs to sustain them. If they are lucky to get a matching kidney transplant, then you now need drugs also to suppress any reaction that may come out of those drugs. These drugs are expensive and require monitoring and evaluation from time to time. Therefore, this petition, which is before this House, will give us an opportunity to survey how the universal health care is able to take care of these patients who are in a fairly large percentage of the bracket of people otherwise will be dealing with people with kidney failure and therefore becoming very expensive for this country to maintain them on dialysis. Otherwise, if properly done, they can be able to live a normal life and be able to survive and support their families. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ephraim Maina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I like to support this petition. And Mr. Speaker, as a country, we need to re-examine ourselves regarding health care. Mr. Speaker, even before we come to this kind of complicated case of kidney transplant and the effects thereafter, Mr. Speaker, in this country today, each of us knows when you go to the hospital the kind of bill you are faced with. And Mr. Speaker, most of our ordinary people just cannot afford. Mr. Speaker, even our primary health care, which leads to this kind of complications, needs also to be looked at. I hope the committee will go deeper into this matter. But Mr. Speaker, I would wish to draw attention also to the committee to the issue of UHC, which had been started as a pilot project in 4 counties, Machakos, Kisumu, Isiolo, and Nyeri. And Mr. Speaker, it came about a year ago, and just as it came, Mr. Speaker, it disappeared just about a couple of months ago. And Mr. Speaker, many people are suffering today because even if they go to the UHC, they cannot just be to NHIF, they will be required to pay some, I don't know, 3 months, and wait for some 3 months. And Mr. Speaker, I would wish this committee to look into the same matter. I'm saying this because the issue of the transplant and the complication thereof and the cost thereof, as has been actually narrated in the petition, is really unavoidable to the common man. And not just the kidney transplant. There are the diseases like cancer. There are other even simpler diseases. People suffering from blood pressure, people suffering from diabetes, people suffering from other ailments like pneumonia. Today, let us be fair, we developed health care, but what we are witnessing are strikes. What we have witnessed are even hospitals being closed in some counties. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I would wish this matter is looked wholesome. But the truth of the matter is that the most important thing to any human being, the most important thing that a government can give service to its people is to start with affordability for somebody to survive. Food. After that, health care comes second. Roads and all these other things can come another category. But, Mr. Speaker, I dare say that in this country today, most common people cannot afford health care. And to those who have gone through transplant, it's just a nightmare. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support this petition, and I ask that this matter be looked in a wholesome manner. And in this respect, let us all condemn and actually stand with the fight against corruption, because the resources of this country should be going towards assisting the people of Kenya, but not disappearing in the manner we are hearing. Mr. Speaker, I support this petition. Thank you very much.
Senator Abshiro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support Senator Maura's petition. Mr. Speaker, when the President decided to make universal health coverage as one of his big 4 agenda and legacy agenda items, it was a really amazing thing because it is a constitutional implementation mechanism. Mr. Speaker, Article 43, of course, is very clear to everybody that every person has a right to the highest standards of healthcare, and therefore, especially people that need it the most, people that have had post-operative care, people that are dealing with things such as kidney failures are the most needy, and therefore insurance ideally should be coming in at our hour of need. And in this case, Mr. Speaker, to be told that they don't get any post-operative or post-care is really sad, and I hope that this House will do justice in the implementation of Article 43, in the support of the Big 4 agenda as far as the universal health coverage is concerned, and actually in ensuring that our people are covered and our people get dignity even in sickness. Mr. Speaker, I have sponsored a bill on the dignity of human beings, the preservation of human dignity, and enforcement of socio-economic rights. I cannot think of a better thing for us to be dealing with than the health care of people that are actually on the verge of a life-threatening, kidney failures and kidney care. Mr. Speaker, NDCs or non-communicable diseases are becoming the #1 killer of our people. A huge percentage, I know a lot of focus has been given to communicable diseases in the past, and now with COVID, of course, all our attention is on communicable diseases, but we still have non-communicable diseases are #1 killer in this country, and kidney failure is one of them, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that I hope the Health Committee that is going to deal with this petition comes to wide-ranging recommendations that is going to ensure that we implement our Constitution, we support our President in the implementation of his Big 4 agenda with regards to health coverage, but more importantly, we preserve the dignity of our people by giving them the most basic health care.
Order. You have overshot. Okay, take your seats. Okay, honorable senators, pursuant to Standing Order number 2321, the petition is hereby committed to the Standing Committee on Health for its consideration. In terms of Standing Order 2322, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Papers. Chairperson, Education. Okay, deferred. Oh. Yes, proceed, Chair, Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, 15 September 2020. Report of the Standing Committee on Education on the Kenya Sign Language Bill, Senate Bills number 15 of 2019. Thank
you. Senate Majority Leader. Deferred. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
A leader of majority, the minority leader, you can approach the Senator Dulo, approach the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to give notice of the following motion: alteration of the Senate calendar regular session for the 4th session 2020, that pursuant to a standing order 28 and 29 and the regulations of the Senate made on 27th 2020, approval of the Senate calendar 17th March 2020, 14th April 2020, 2nd June 2020, 16th June 2020, 23rd June 2020, and 4th August 2020, alteration of the Senate calendar. The Senate now resolves to further alter its calendar in respect of the Part 4 and Part 5 to hold 2 sittings in each week on Tuesday and on Thursday, beginning on Tuesday, 15th September 2020, and on Thursday, 17th September 2020, and that the Senate calendar regular sessions for the 4th session 2020 be altered accordingly. I thank you.
Next order. Okay, order, Senators. I now direct that we go to order number 13, Leader of Majority.
Order number 13.
What's your point of order? Pardon? You put on your mic? Okay.
Sorry?
What were you saying? It's a notice of motion. The motion hasn't come.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Senator Bogisho.
Order number 13, motion, alteration of the Senate calendar, regular sessions for the 4th session 2020.
Leader of Majority.
the house so quiet?
Thank you, Speaker. The Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to Standing Orders number 28, 29, and the resolutions of the Senate made on the 27th February 2020, which is approval of the Senate calendar, 17th March 2020, 14th April 2020, 2nd June 2020, 16th June 2020, 23rd June 2020, and 4th August 2020, alteration of the Senate calendar. The Senate now resolves to further alter its calendar in respect of Part 4 and Part 5, to hold 2 sittings in each week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, beginning on Tuesday 15th September 2020 and on Thursday 17th September 2020, and that the Senate calendar regular sessions for the 4th session 2020 be altered accordingly. The Speaker, this is very straightforward, as requested by members themselves, that they would like to be meeting twice in a week from this week, Mr. Speaker, so that we can cover much ground, and would therefore, Mr. Speaker, just add that the members do support this, and we move our sessions to 2 days in a week. And I think I will move. The Speaker, I beg to move and ask the Minority Leader to second. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second.
Okay, Honorable Senators, I propose the question, which is that pursuant to Standing Orders 28 and 29 and the resolution of the Senate made on 27 February 2020 approval of the Senate calendar, June 2020 and 4th August 2020, alteration of the Senate calendar, the Senate now resolves to further alter its calendar in respect of Part 4 and Part 5 to hold 2 sittings in each week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, beginning on Tuesday, 15 September 2020, and on Thursday, 17 September 2020, and that the Senate calendar regular sessions for the 4th session 2020 be altered accordingly. Senator Ali?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move the following amendment to the motion on the alteration of the Senate calendar. That the motion be amended by deleting the words "to hold 2 sittings in each week on Tuesdays and on Thursdays, beginning on Tuesday, 15 September 2020, and on Thursday, 17 September 2020, and substituting thereof the words "to hold sittings as provided for in the Standing Order 31-1, namely Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, commencing at 2:30 p.m. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have had meetings once a week for nearly 2 months. And the way things are, we are not able to finish whatever we need to do in this House. The CRA formula has been on throughout for the last 1 month, and we are not going anywhere. We need more time and more days to discuss this issue. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move and ask Senator Lituri to second.
Mr. Speaker, let me second this motion by saying very clearly that this Senate has a lot of reports to adopt. If I remember, before we left the public accounts, we had so many reports here. We have the MES report, so many reports which I cannot continually name. And considering, Mr. Speaker, the proposals being made by the majority leader, is for us to come from our constituencies on a Tuesday, remain in the chamber, skip a day that is Wednesday, which is a day that would as well not do anything literally out of Nairobi, and then come on a Thursday. It's waste of time. Mr. Speaker, I support that we must continue working from Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because we have work to do, and I think it is only necessary to apply or to use our time prudently, because we come from our constituencies to come and sit here, so we have no Wednesday to sit down here and waste. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I propose a question, which is that the motion be amended by deleting the words "to hold 2 sittings in each week on Tuesday and on Thursdays, beginning on Tuesday, 15 September 2020, and on Thursday, 17 September 2020, and substituting thereof the words "to hold sittings as provided for in Standing Order 31, 1, namely Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, commencing at 2:30 p.m. Senator Malala.
Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this amendment because, Mr. Speaker, we need to resume our normal sittings because we have a lot of work in our interim, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we've had a very serious matter before this House for 10 good sittings. Mr. Speaker, it is very important for us to provide time for this House so that we meet on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays as provided for in our standing orders, because we have a lot of business to dispense, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I sit in the House Business Committee. We have a lot of statements. We have a lot of pending bills. Bills are now stuck at second reading, Mr. Speaker, because we don't have adequate time to come and deliberate on the same business, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even outside this House, we can still float an idea, Mr. Speaker, that we've seen normal business resuming in this country. We have seen political rallies being done across this country, Mr. Speaker. If political rallies can be done 3 times a week, why can Senate sit 3 times a week, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, it is responsible upon ourselves, Mr. Speaker, to consider this amendment, because this is a House that is transacting very important business, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of this country. So, Mr. Speaker, I think I would like to request my colleagues to consider the amendment brought about by Senator Abdullahi to have Senate sit 3 times a week, as opposed to the initial motion, which was suggesting we sit twice a week. I support the amendments. Thank you.
Senator Nderitu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I stand to support this amendment by Senator Abdullahi. Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of work as a Senate, and because, Mr. Speaker, the curve of coronavirus is flattening, Mr. Speaker, I believe that Mr. Speaker, if we sit 3 times a week, we are going to do more than we are doing in once per week. Mr. Speaker, you know, when we have this share of revenue, every Kenyan is complaining that we have taken so long. The reason why they are complaining that we have taken so long is because we are only meeting once in a week. But, Mr. Speaker, if you are meeting 3 times in a week, the time would have been shorter. So, Mr. Speaker, I stand to support the amendment by Senator Abdullahi. We meet 3 times a week so that we can expedite what we have as a Senate, Mr. Speaker, and especially on these issues that's affecting many people in this republic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Junior.
Speaker, we're in September of 2020. I suspect, Mr. Speaker, from the proceedings of the last Senate, that you will have difficulties in 2021 to get members here, because majority of us will be campaigning. 2, Mr. Speaker, reggae is back. We are going to be campaigning. There's going to be activity. Mr. Speaker, since we are going to sit between now and December, Mr. Speaker, we should sit 3 times and clear the deck of all pending business, so that, Mr. Speaker, when we get into the era of electoral reform, because I suspect just like the last session, we spent a lot of time in the last year doing electoral reforms, where Senator Orengo and Senator Kiraitu were chairing a joint committee. Mr. Speaker, this Senate must participate in the preparation of a fair, free, and transparent election. We cannot be having pending business, Mr. Speaker, in 2021 and 2022. So, Mr. Speaker, I support with the necessary modifications that we sit 3 times a week, Mr. Speaker, so that we can clear pending business. While at it, Mr. Speaker, you are aware that your colleague at the National Assembly has issued a communication on about 10 bills. One of them, Mr. Speaker, affects Senator George Haniri in Vihiga, the County Boundaries Bill. The other one affects the Mental Health Bill. The other one affects the bill by Senator Zani. Mr. Speaker, by the time I'm asking that you make a communication, because you have communicated with me that you propose that we have those bills sponsored by members of the Senate and National Assembly. That's additional work. Because, Mr. Speaker, there's no shortcut of protecting counties on its boundaries unless we have a legal framework. And I suspect, Mr. Speaker, from the report I read by the Senator Haji-led committee, that framework of Article 188 on county boundaries is not going to change even by their report. County boundaries will still be the mandate of the National Assembly and the Senate. And therefore, Speaker, in the next sitting or soon thereafter, maybe Thursday, please communicate on these very important issues that Senate has passed and the National Assembly has declared those bills money bills. But it will be well for you, Speaker, because I'm not sure whether you'll be here next time, for you to have as many bills assented to this session, now that we have a very good cooperation. And Senator Fogisio and Senator Orengo, I've seen your pictures today at the big house, showing that now it means that we'll get our business of this Senate directly going there without necessarily using any other middle ground. Thank you. The bridge has been created. Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a communication in our next sitting, because like you have rightly said, we've had some informal discussions on why our bills emanating from any house should not be lost on a technicality, but I'll give a communication. Senator Bogisho, then Senator Hargura from the other chamber.
Yeah. Speaker, there is a Speaker, on this matter of meeting 2 or 3 times a week, I think you also have to make a communication, Speaker. How did we get to meeting just once? How did we get to meeting just once and then twice? We're just beginning to add. I think, Mr. Speaker, that this is because of difficult times we have today, the problems of COVID-19, and this was just about protocols. And also I want to remind members, Mr. Speaker, that this is their calendar. They can change it anytime. They don't have to bring an amendment on the floor of the House to change something which they can change anytime. I think the reason why we're asking for an extra day, Mr. Speaker, was because of the COVID times, and I think we are not prepared. I think 1 day was left in between so that the place can be fumigated and so on. So you have to tell us through communication whether that is now possible, whether that has been opened now so that we can meet back to normal. Because, I mean, once we are back to normal, Mr. Speaker, once we are back to normal, we don't have to ask for permission from anybody. We just change our calendar as we wish. So, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to alert members that they are free at any time to change the calendar.
What's your point of intervention, Senator Ali?
Leader in order. I've done an amendment legally, by law. Why is it in order to rubbish what we have done? Yeah.
No, I think he didn't.
You're not allowed to oppose it.
He didn't rubbish. He was just giving his views. Let's proceed, Senator Orengo. Oh, Senator Argura. I'd call Senator Argura, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, initially when we reduced our sittings to 1 day, there was a reason. And as we know, the situation is improving, and we also have a lot of work to do. So I support the motion as amended so that we can clear the backlog of what we have, especially the contentious issue of the CRF formula, which because of 1 day sitting, we have taken 2 months or even more than 2 months, which would have been done in 2 weeks. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll urge my colleagues to support these amendments so that we can get back to business and clear this issue of the formula plus all the pending bills. If you check, our order paper is always heavy, but nothing is done at the end of the day. We are just producing paper without executing our responsibility. I support the amendment. Thank you.
What's your point of order, Senator Sakaja?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, clearly members want to contribute to this, but Mr. Speaker, many are taking the opportunity to discuss the amendment, or to discuss the larger motion while we are still at the amendment. Mr. Speaker, why don't you put the question on the amendment, and then those who want to contribute can contribute on the motion. Then, Mr. Speaker, you remember we also have very serious business on the revenue formula that we would want to listen and get an update and make a decision as a House. Mr. Speaker, I ask that you put the question.
Okay, Honorable Senators, I'll put the question, the amendment, that the motion be amended by deleting the words "to hold 2 sittings in each week on Tuesday and on Thursdays, beginning on Tuesday, 15 September 2020, and on Thursday, 17 September 2020, and substituting therefore the words "to hold sittings as provided for in Standing Order 31-1, namely Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays commencing at 2:30 p.m. As a manner of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As a manner of a contrary view, say nay. The ayes have it. So now we are back. Okay, now we put the question. Okay, order, Senators. We are now back to the motion as amended. Senator Kajwang. Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, even though I don't have very strong views on this motion because it's procedural, but we must remind ourselves that we passed a resolution that allows hybrid sittings of this Senate. Mr. Speaker, I've heard colleagues say that because people are doing rallies and people are going for reggae concerts, we should also do the same. It is not right that we do the wrong that others are doing because they are doing it. But more fundamentally, Mr. Speaker, you and the leadership needs to assure this House that if you are going to sit 3 days in a week, that we are going to have an element of virtual sittings in those 3 days. Mr. Speaker, we have been in this parliament from the last one and this one. There was a time when there was a lot of pressure when I was chairing the Public Accounts Committee that I should bring reports to this House for the consideration of the House. When we brought 60 reports, Mr. Speaker, it was only Ledamo Lekina and Professor Ngeri and I and members of the Public Accounts Committee who are here to discuss those reports. The revenue debate does not need 10 sittings, Mr. Speaker. It just requires goodwill. To argue that we need more sittings to pass the revenue formula is like arguing that you need 9 men to achieve conception. Mr. Speaker, please assure us that we shall be sitting virtually. That way, I can go to Homa Bay, I can talk to the fishermen, and at the appointed time, I can log in. And Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that this House will be more productive the way we have been more productive in committees where we have allowed virtual sittings. Mr. Speaker, I support, but please allow hybrid sittings to be the norm rather than the exception, because the last time I asked, I was told that it is SBC to determine which one should be hybrid or not. And Mr. Speaker, if we had virtual sittings where people can vote virtually, even our friends like Senator Malala, who like sitting in the boot of Subaru vehicles, can vote from the boot of a Subaru. It does not have to be in this House. Mr. Speaker, I support.
What's your point of order, Senator Murkomen?
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, is Senator Kajwang in order to, Mr. Speaker, belittle the situation that befell Senator Malala, and particularly, Mr. Speaker, the fact that his sitting inside a Subaru vehicle, Mr. Speaker, was because he was illegally arrested in circumstances that even IG and DCI yesterday have confirmed that they are not even sure who ordered. And Mr. Speaker, it's in public domain that Senator Malala has also told the country that his life is in danger. And it's part of serious public discourse. Mr. Speaker, is it in order for Senator Moses Kajwang, my friend, and who is young and I thought progressive, to, Mr. Speaker, belittle that very serious situation, Mr. Speaker, that our colleague is facing in this House?
What's your point of order, Senator Wetangula? Okay, just a minute, Senator Kajwang.
Speaker, I have no doubt that Senator Kajwang said it in jest and allow some comic relief in the House, really, because Senator Malala himself is here. He has not protested. Don't wail louder than the bereaved, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, that is not the issue I stood up for. The mood is very clear that we have much more serious work than extending the calendar or dealing with the sittings. I want to move, Mr. Speaker, that you put the question on this motion as amended so that we can go to more serious work. On behalf of my kid, my son, Malala, I want to encourage him that Senator Kajwang is not a malicious man, and I'm sure he said it in jest. Let's move on.
Okay, order. Okay, Senator Mazayo, I'm good.
Bwana Spika, siku ile ambayo Malala atashikwa, atatiwa ndani ya gari ya Subaru rangi ya kijani, nilikuwa kwa nyumba yake. Jana nilikuwa hapa kwa hili bunge letu la Senate. Nikamuona Malala akiwa analia hapa mbele ya maseneta wenzangu. Leo hivi tukiambiwa ya kwamba Malala alikuwa analia machozi ya mamba, na hali aliweza kueleza kinaga ubaga sababu za yeye kulia na kwa sababu gani anataka kuliwa na mamba. Leo ikiwa tutachukua swala la kwamba alijitia ndani ya Subaru na akawa sasa mimi sikujua kama Malala anafanya mzaha na Malala mwenyewe alikataa. Je, ni haki? Je, ni usawa kwa Seneta Kajwang kusema ya kwamba Malala anapenda sana kukaa chini ya buti ya Subaru?
Okay, order, members. Order. This is what I want to say, yeah? Order, members. Senator Matangi, sit down. Okay, order, members. I know that was a grave matter, but I just want to ask all of us to be a bit sensitive when we make certain contributions. And I think it will be important that we be sensitive. I now put the question, which is that the motion for alteration of the calendar of the Senate as amended by Senator Abdullahi Ali's amendment be approved. Would as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Would as many of a contrary view say nay? The ayes have it. Senator Bokisho.
Yes, Speaker, just following on that, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to request that we allow members to convert into a Kamukunji, Mr. Speaker, so that we can go and as discussed today in the SBC, so that we can go and discuss the Mr. Speaker, the issues of the formula, Mr. Speaker. It is important, Mr. Speaker, that this is not a request for a motion. This is a request for the Speaker to allow this place to adjourn for a short time, or allow us to go and convert ourselves into a Kamukunji, so that we can. The Speaker has So, Mr. Speaker, I'm actually requesting that you help this House convert into Kamukunji. Thank you. Because you can come back.
What's your point of order, Senator Wambua?
Mr. Speaker, I seek guidance from the chair, the Speaker, on a matter of procedure, whether it is in order for the majority leader to just wake up from his chair and ask the Speaker to allow the House to move into a motion. Mr. Speaker, that's too casual. It's too casual, Mr. Speaker. Can you move a motion?
Senator Cherargei?
Thank you, Speaker. Mine is a comment. I think this issue of consensus building on the revenue formula is for the good of all of us. And I think the request that has been made, in my own opinion, is for you at understanding order number 1, where you can use discretion to give an adjournment, or we give us a break or a timeout for a few minutes so that we can now sit and agree and maybe resolve this issue. Because there could be a possibility of some new information that the House might be made. So, Mr. Speaker, I think understanding order number 1, you can exercise your discretion there. I thank you, Speaker.
Senator Wetangula?
Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage the majority leader that in the future we should have some reference to standing orders when we make any moves on the House. And there's no provision in these standing orders for any member to just make a request on the Speaker. You move in accordance with standing orders, and the majority leader should have moved you under Standing Order 105, that we do not adjourn whatever debate we have on the floor for whatever consultations we want to have. He's done the right thing wrongly, Mr. Speaker, and I want you to make sure that we have our records clean, because these proceedings will be read in the future by students, researchers, our children, our grandchildren, everybody. So having clean records and proper legal framework is quite important in any parliament.
Yes, Leader of Majority, I think you're making an important request, but like they're saying, do it in the right way. Okay, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, this is a House of Rules and Procedures. In fact, we cannot just stand up and say that we are done. And unfortunately, we have done this before in this House. It's going to be a practice for us. And the majority leader, in fact, should invoke standing order number 32 to ask for the House to be adjourned. But just standing up and saying that, because, you know, the practice we are now adopting in future, it will be, you know, it's going to be a practice of the House. So don't allow something like this to happen, Mr. Speaker. Sir. There must be procedure for asking for the House to be adjourned. I thank you.
Senator Cheruiyot, what is it then I give the leader to do the right thing?
Mr. Speaker, I have a different issue. I know earlier on when Senator Mutula rose on a point of order concerning issues to do with the consensus that is being built around bills in both houses of parliament, you gave an assurance to the House that you shall be giving a further communication. In your communication, Mr. Speaker, I want you to further assure senators in this House on the status of the case that we filed at the High Court about a year ago, because I am privy to information, Mr. Speaker, that leadership are perhaps considering the option of withdrawing that case without deferring back to us senators, because that was a decision of a resolution of the House. Therefore, it is extremely important when you're bringing that communication, Mr. Speaker, that you make it clear that before any such decision can be taken, you must revert back to this House so that senators give you the permission on the direction you take with regards to that case, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Can we allow, why don't we allow Leader of Majority so that we, which one? That issue, I will issue a communication. Okay, Senator Murkomen. So that we, honorable senators, you know, we are saying we have a heavy duty ahead of us, so let's minimize these other things.
Mr. Speaker, the issue that Senator Cheriot has raised is urgent, and Mr. Speaker, is pregnant. Information, it's pregnant, Mr. Speaker, because information reaching me is that tomorrow there are attempts by some quarters that I do not know who they are to withdraw the petition that was filed by this House in my tenure when I was a majority leader and petitioner number 3. And Mr. Speaker, that withdrawal of the petition is going to be heard tomorrow. And rumors has it that, Mr. Speaker, you consented, the minority leader, the new majority leader, consented to withdraw that petition, despite the fact that all this House, we moved to court under very difficult circumstances, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
order members.
Wait, Mr. Speaker, that is more grave. In fact, it might be graver, Mr. Speaker, than the issue of revenue, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just in case, and I want to say this, just in case there is anyone contemplating, and I don't believe Senator Orengo can do that, just in case there is anyone who has been entrusted by the executive to enter into a consent to withdraw that petition, which has already been opposed by Council of Governors and Katiba Institute, and I will oppose. Mr. Speaker, we will meet with you in court tomorrow. That is 1. 2, Mr. Speaker, this House will take that to be a grave violation, Mr. Speaker, of the procedure of this House, because Senate Business Committee made a resolution, and all of us went to the court. There is no authority that the Speaker has, or the majority leader, or the minority leader, to withdraw that case, Mr. Speaker, without reference back to us. You know, Mr. Speaker, the struggle to make this House relevant, the struggle to make this House, Mr. Speaker, perform its responsibility started with a court process in 2013. And Mr. Speaker, for some of us who still believe in Senate and who want to serve in this House, and Mr. Speaker, who believe that Senate must continue performing its responsibility to protect devolution, it will be a grave mistake if there is any staff, any lawyer, any senator who is going to betray the cause, Mr. Speaker, of ensuring that this Senate becomes strong. If there is something, I will do everything humanly possible, Mr. Speaker, to oppose is any process that is geared towards withdrawal of that decision. Mr. Speaker, you've said you make a communication. Mr. Speaker, as you make your communication, please appreciate the sentiments that come from the members of this House who believe in posterity and the institution of the Senate.
Leader, okay, why don't we go back to... Okay, Senator Ledama. Okay.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm wondering whether some of us are the only visitors in Jerusalem. We sit in this House, Senate pronounce itself through motions. You know, we sit here as 68 senators, including yourself, Mr. Speaker, sir. Anything that touches on devolution is a matter of life and death for us. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to join my colleagues.
Is that a point of order, or?
I want to join my colleagues in saying that if there is any attempt to challenge the authority of the 68 members who sit in this House, it must be brought here so that we pass by a resolution of this House. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to beseech you and the leadership that let us not try and play with the doctrine of separation of powers. Our generation will stand firm and defend it. We went to court. We marched from here all the way there. Mr. Speaker, the other day...
What's your point of order?
My point of order is this. I am disturbed by the point of order raised by Senator Cheriot in regards to court cases that have been filed by this House, and now we hear that through the back door, they are being removed. Okay. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to beseech you, as I go and sit, that please take these matters very seriously. That as a future generation, we are here to defend devolution in this country.
Senator Orengo.
Mr. Speaker, I want to give some clarity to this issue because of the statements which are being made. But I think at a particular time, just like Senator Kongo Omugeni, Senior Counsel, when proceedings were in the Supreme Court, nobody even bothered about the outcome until he came here to tell us what was the outcome. If you ask anybody what was the outcome of that case, I think it's only Senator Mutula Kilonzo who, in certain conversations that we had with the Treasury when they were misquoting the judgment of the Supreme Court, that he was able to point out to them, you're reading the wrong section of the decision of the Supreme Court. So I just want to urge members that with the kind of interest that we show on some of these matters, I think when the matter comes in court, and there are many lawyers here, let us not allow Senator Okongo Mugeni to be the only person who is appearing in court. I have not been appearing, but it's Senator Okongo Mugeni who is there religiously trying to determine what is happening in court. So I would invite the members to come to court tomorrow because I think it's an important day in court. As regards the question of withdrawal, in fact, if you look at the proposals which came from the National Assembly, they wanted the Senate to withdraw the petition that the Senate had filed in the High Court. And, Mr. Speaker, you are aware that there was a resistance to a move towards the withdrawal of that petition. And that is the position. Because what is being discussed at the moment is a consent order in which the National Assembly, through their Speaker, has accepted that Article 110 of the Constitution, sub-Article 3, is mandatory. And he has gone further to say that we need to amend the standing orders of the Senate and the National Assembly. Because according to the National Assembly, consideration of whether a matter concerns counties or not is a matter they take to a committee in the National Assembly without reference to the Speaker. According to the proposal, which if the parties accept is going to be filed in court, a consent order, and I need not try to elaborate the difference between a court ruling and a consent order. A consent order is like a contract between one party or another. That's why in a consent order, the court does not actually write out a verdict. The parties sign the order before it is entered as an order of the court. So in that consent order, the Speaker of the National Assembly is admitting that Article 110 of the Constitution is obligatory. And he was saying that because we waste a lot of money, the other house discussing a bill, and when they have discussed it, then it comes to you for concurrence. The decision is that before any bill is read for the first time, before it actually reaches the House, because the House considers the bill when it's read for the first time, he is saying, and is agreeing with us, that that concurrence should take place before the bill is tabled. And you know how we have had that debate. And there is a matrix that the legal department were told to prepare, in which the progress of a bill before it's tabled and before it comes to you, before it goes to the Speaker of the National Assembly, they will learn to see that all the stages have been passed through, including getting your concurrence before it is tabled. I wish I had that consent order here with me. And Senator Omugeni, I want to thank you, because the initial consent order that came from the National Assembly, Senator Omugeni was the first person to say, we cannot have this consent order. The second one is on the requirement to amend standing orders, because the standing orders of the National Assembly do not require that there should be concurrence. It requires that the matter is taken to the committee first, and then it's the committee which decides what is a matter concerning counties. Then the third issue, which I think is a development, and this we have gotten courtesy of the Speaker of the National Assembly, He's saying there's a lot of bills which are pending in the other house on a lame excuse that they are money bills. He has looked at a lot of legislation in the United States where money bills go to both houses. And he's thinking that for whatever reason or for whatever it is worth, really there are only two bills that he thinks should not come to the Senate because they are specifically provided for. Those are the Appropriations Act. But he's saying all other bills, including money bill, in fact, we are trying to get a framework of how to ensure then what is defined as a money bill could be piloted through both houses. You know what happens in the National Assembly is that at the end of the bill they say this is a money bill, and on that basis alone the bill will not be discussed. All their bills at the end of it they write money bill. So the Speaker of the National Assembly, and we've agreed that we find a basis of ensuring that money bills actually come to the Senate. The third issue, which I think was also critically important, which is coming up, is on the question of the definition of what is a money bill. Because right now, it is the National Assembly. In fact, if you read the judgment in the Supreme Court, the one that Okongo Mugeni was reading here, money bill is anything that the National Assembly thinks is a money bill, but is a matter of law which should be defined. So I would want to urge you that we look at the content of that consent order. The constitutionality of the bills is a matter which now remains in contention between the two houses and the Council of Governors, because that is a contention which some other parties have brought. And without them signing a consent, we will have to go into determination of whether the bills which have been passed or enacted are constitutional bills. I may be wrong on one or two issues, but I think this matter has seen somewhat development. I think we are better. We are in a better place than we were previously. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Senator Kangata.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll be urging fellow senators to look at that issue from this prism, that the issue as to concerning whether that suit is going to be compromised through a consent order, from where I sit, Mr. Speaker, should not really be the prime point of discussion. We should be discussing whether the contents of that consent order reflects the wishes of the Senate. And therefore, I would be proposing the minority leader or even the majority leader or the House leadership to give us a draft copy of the proposed consent order for the consideration by members of this House, so that if we feel there's a problem in some of the terms, we will raise those issues. But for me, I would agree that a consent order, a final judgment, the bottom line is the same. It is a verdict of the court. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sakaja. Sakaja then.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while we appreciate what the leader of minority has said and the efforts of Senator Mugeni, Mr. Speaker, the question that we have, because this process, you were sent by the Senate, was when were you going to come back to us, Mr. Speaker, and explain what is going on? Because, Mr. Speaker, if it was just the decision of a judge, you know, that is one thing. But a consent where parties are entering into and you're negotiating on our behalf, Mr. Speaker, ideally, there would have been a Kamkunji where you come and update us that this matter has reached here, and because of this, this is the decision we want to make. Now, if it is being done tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, and we're hearing it from the grapevine, we're hearing it from, I don't know, social media, whoever it is, Mr. Speaker, that is, it's a bit unfair on the senators who sent Senator Umogeni and the leader, and I'm saying we appreciate what they're doing, but you come back to us. Mr. Speaker, if you're saying that we are agreeing, yet just a week or two ago, the National Assembly declared Pandemic and Disaster Response Bill, which we worked on here, more than 170 submissions. In fact, in that committee, the Deputy Director of the Parliamentary Budget Office was sitting with us, made us make sure it is not a money bill, And after all that work, Senator Kasanga, you're now the chair of COVID committee, they just casually declare it a money bill. So, Mr. Speaker, this process, I think, is being mishandled. And I think we need to come back to us before going to court. We can't just meet in court. You need to come back to us, because until you do so, no one representing the Senate has authority to enter consent. Mr. Speaker, until you come back to those who sent you, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on the other matter, I've seen members being very hard on the leader of majority. I think the leader of majority was in order, standing order, if he was rising on 32. Because standing order 32 says that a senator may, at any time, for reasons stated, seek to move that the Senate do now adjourn. He just didn't mention the standing order. And he'd have moved, there's no need to be too tough on him. He's had a tough few weeks. But Mr. Speaker, if you're to move under 105, then you have not called out the order. You need to call out the order for us to go to the revenue formula, and once you've called out the order, then you can move to adjourn. Let's listen to what...
okay, Senator Kimani Wamatangi, then Wetangula. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. Okay. Let him clear something. Then I'll give you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first I want to confess that acting for Senate, this is one of the most difficult clients I've ever dealt with, because they give you instructions to act for them, but you will never get them to get further instructions. But Mr. Speaker, and I want the country to know that I'm doing this for the Senate pro bono without being paid any fees. But Mr. Speaker, you will confirm to the House, Mr. Speaker, that I wanted us to move together. And I'd requested the Speaker to call for Kamkunji yesterday so that I report back to the House the progress that we had made in trying to have this matter settled out of court. And as Senator Orengo has said, we have actually had a partial discussion because we have not agreed on issues on Article 109 and 114 on money bill. We have made some progress on 110. But I can tell you that there is a very good, overtures coming our way from the Speaker of the National Assembly, including a proposal that we explore amending the standing orders of the National Assembly and the Senate to allow for co-sponsorship of bills, so that we don't have a situation where bills like the one that was sponsored by Senator Kasanga, mental health bill, has very good provisions, but was knocked down on account of it being a money bill. So I want to urge the House to trust the Senator for Nyamira, who is a senior counsel, who is a former chair of the Law Society of Kenya, to offer able representation. But Mr. Speaker, you can give direction to the House as to when we will have a Kamkunji so that we report to the House on the progress we are making. And I agree with Senator Kangata, the leader of the whip from the majority side, that we need to report back to our clients, and then they give us authority to enter into any consent. That I fully agree. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kimani Wamatangi, then Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise, Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, and especially to ride on the communication that you had made earlier, Mr. Speaker, and as raised by Senator Cheriot, that you have promised to make a communication, Mr. Speaker. As the chairperson of the Committee on Roads in Senate, Mr. Speaker, I would want in your communication that you also, Mr. Speaker, communicate to this House and also to the Committee on Roads, Mr. Speaker, because some time ago, Mr. Speaker, during the discussion and debate on the bill of the Roads Bill 2015, which came to this House, which was debated vigorously in this House, Mr. Speaker, and because the National Assembly disagreed with that bill, Mr. Speaker, and the resolutions of the Senate as amended on that bill, Mr. Speaker, yourself and this House passed a resolution to form a mediation committee. And in that mediation committee, Mr. Speaker, I sat with senators, Senator Wambua, I sat with quite a few senators. I might not remember all of them, Mr. Speaker. But then the process of the discussions on the mediation, Mr. Speaker, collapsed. Because when senators sat with members of the National Assembly, we were booed, we were heckled, we were called names. Finally, that process collapsed. And effectively, we reported to this House that the mediation has collapsed. But then, subsequently, upon perusal, Mr. Speaker, it came to my notice and attention as the chairperson of the committee that a consent has been entered that we agreed. And Mr. Speaker, the question that I would want to be addressed, Mr. Speaker, effectively and clearly in your communication, Mr. Speaker, is how, in the absence of involvement of the committee, the members who had been selected in that panel of mediation, how was a consent entered in a process of mediation that collapsed, Mr. Speaker? I would want to hear that, Mr. Speaker, so that I can also communicate to members of my committee and to this House how that consent was entered.
Senator Wetangula.
First, I want to thank the Senator for Kericho for raising this matter, and equally for the Senator for Siaya for offering an explanation. But, Mr. Speaker, with hindsight, and those of us who have been here from the last Senate, we have had a lot of frustrations, a lot of fights, to find the footing and relevance of this House within the constitutional order of this country. We have gone to court in the last session, Mr. Speaker, and we made some milestone in the Supreme Court advisory. I want to urge the leadership, Mr. Speaker, because they lead the House, and the entire House is the client of Senator Omugeni and other lawyers that have gone to court, that given what we have gone through, in fact, if there was any intention to file a consent tomorrow, it should be deferred. So that, Mr. Speaker, if any such consent is entered, it must bear in mind, and we need to see the draft amendments of the standing orders of the lower house that have been an impediment to these processes, so that we satisfy ourselves that in fact that amendment is within the letter and spirit of the consent we are entering. If there is any change in our own standing orders, we need also to satisfy them in the same manner. Then and only then, Mr. Speaker, should we consent to anybody going to file a consent on our behalf. Before we went to court, Mr. Speaker, you remember we had a serious kamkunji where everybody spoke and everybody's opinion was taken on board before we walked all the way to Miliman Law Courts. I sympathized with some of our colleagues who had difficulties walking, but we still reached there, like the distinguished Senator Millicent Omanga. Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I can say without any fear of contradiction that Mama Miradi had a lot of problems walking all the way. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge Senator Orengo and Senator Bogisho to cause you to have a kamkunji. Let's look at what we went to court for and what we are achieving in the process of this consent so that going to the future, this House reclaims its position and constitutional relevance in the dispensation of the new order in this country. Because, like Senator Orengo said, if you look at the Constitution, the issue of what a money bill is very fluid. It just says a money bill is a money bill. It doesn't say anything beyond that. And it's now been left to the National Assembly to decide what is a money bill and what isn't. We need to have defined parameters on what exactly is. And the Supreme Court said they can't envisage any legislation that doesn't touch on counties. So they must all come here. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge that tomorrow's proceedings in court and the parties can consent to stay anything to a later date so that we have clarity of these issues.
Yes, point of information.
Mr. Speaker, the position is no consent has been filed. And the case is starting tomorrow. And the bench directed there will be no adjournment. The case starts tomorrow. And I would also want to confirm to the Senate that our lawyers and the legal department, they have filed their submissions, full submissions on every question. So it's not nobody has gone to rest. And I think for that, some of us who have been following this matter, you know, we deserve a pat on the back because, you know, preparing submissions is not it's not an easy thing. If I show you the authorities and the submissions which have been filed, and our legal department in the Senate has done a lot of work. So I would say now that the consent has not been filed, let people come to court tomorrow, because the judges said there is no adjournment tomorrow. You must argue that case tomorrow for 2 days. You must argue that case, and I think the Council of Governors are also having problems with certain bills. The Katiba Institute have also brought some issues. So I just wanted, Mr. Speaker, to clarify, yes, there were discussions, and that discussions did not amount to a consent being filed as yet, and it did not amount to a withdrawal. And now we've been put in a position because of the directive of the court. And you know, it's COVID time. It's a bench of, I think, 5 judges. 5 judges. And they said no adjournment tomorrow. So I think, Senator Cheriot, I would want to see you in the court tomorrow, whether it is virtual, but I think it's a physical hearing.
Senator Cherargei. Then we.
Thank you, Speaker, for this opportunity. As the People's Chairman and former Chair Legal, we did put a lot to ensure it was a success. I want to thank Senior Counsel James Orengo, Senior Counsel, my predecessor, Senator Okongo Mugeni, Senator...
Your successor.
My successor, sorry. And Mutula Kilonzo Jr., it reached a time that only a few of us were in Milimani. And I want to say we have done a lot, and I'm proud. And Chair, on a lighter note, even if I was the whip, let these people not de-whip my work that I done as the Chair of the Legal Affairs. A petition, and Chair on petition number, and I hope Senator Kangata is listening to that, on petition 284/2019, it was consolidated with petition 353/2019, and I can confirm what my minority leader said, that we have 2 straight days between tomorrow and Thursday, and the judges have made a ruling that, or have made a decision that we shall proceed as from tomorrow. So I wanted to bring to the attention, and I agree in the consolidated petition of 353/2019, the COG Speaker, and agree that we need to fast track and work together. It is my prayer that this matter be heard and be concluded, because Senate as a house needs its space. We must move forward. And I want to advise my house leadership for free that don't allow any propono, don't allow any other way to resolve this issue. If we do not allow the courts to pronounce itself on this matter, I'm telling you, after some time, we'll go back to the same issues. You saw the other day the National Assembly was trying to lecture us on our role. We cannot allow that to happen, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I want to encourage my colleagues tomorrow, let us together be in court, either virtually or physically, and ensure that we give moral support to our senior counsels that are the lead, and others who are learning, like some of us, should be there so that can take notes and carry files for other senior counsels. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say, as a former chair, I'm proud that this matter should be dispensed with, and we make our space known. The way the former leadership led by Senator Murkomen, Senator Kithure Kindiki did in the petition, I think in the advisory opinion on the issue of division of revenue. So, Mr. Speaker, we must agree to move forward so that the Senate can have its space, so that we no longer become the footnote. Mr. Speaker, I thank you and thank you for this opportunity.
Senator Wako.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want also to speak on this. Of course, I have absolute confidence in the lawyers who are representing us. That is Senior Counsel Rengo and the chair, the current chair of the Legal Affairs, Mr. Omogeni. But I'm glad that even they see that a client must be informed at every stage of the proceedings. And they have agreed to inform us because we are the clients. But Mr. Speaker, so I want also to mention two things. One, money bill. Money bill, whereas before the Speaker of the National Assembly, or the National Assembly rather, considered all bills not to touch on counties. And therefore, they say that we can only consider the county allocation bill. Whereas they used that excuse, which we debunked in the Supreme Court ruling, now the excuse that they are using is that this bill concerns a money bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, over the weekend we are considering a bill that has come up on an alternative dispute resolution bill. And they said it's a money bill and therefore it cannot come. And when I inquired, it appeared that nearly all the bills that have come up in recent times are not going to come here, not because of the other reason they used to use, that they don't touch on counties, but because it is certified as a money bill. So I would urge our representatives who are, in this particular case I hear, it's also an issue. If you can also focus on trying to get as much as possible a similar agreement that you have reached on these other issues of the consent between the two speakers, on the issue of the money bill, you would have preserved the position of this Senate in the legislative process. Mr. Speaker, sir, I had a very young senator called Olekina saying that we young ones, we are here to preserve the future, but let them also know that you are where you are now because we old ones were there at the very beginning. Mr. Speaker, sir, I can say without any fear of contradiction that had we, the old ones, not taken appropriate action during the first term, you will not be here as a Senate. You will not be here as a legislature. You'll be legislating only on one item, and one item only. But because of the action we took, you are where you are. We went to the Supreme Court under my watch as the chair at that time, supported by the chair of devolution, Mukomen and others. We all, and the Speaker also, even the Speaker, we went to the court and said, it is a matter of life and death for us. It's a matter which concerns our mandate as a legislature, and therefore we put, without considering party affiliation and so on, we are all one as senators. And in fact, I remember saying so at that time that I just hoped that the Senate will continue to have that spirit when we are here of just being senators rather than acting according to the party affiliations. So you young men know that we contributed, and we continue to contribute. As you can see, Orengo is contributing on this matter, Omogen is contributing on this matter, not just young. But please learn first, because we are soon going away, so you learn first from us when we are still around.
Finally, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I think we first should congratulate our legal team, the one best in the Senate. We're only given 2 lawyers, and those 2 lawyers have done a tremendous job. including Senior Counsel Senator Omogeni, Senator Orengo, and to a large extent our clerk, who has aided in some of these prayers. Number two, I'm aware, Speaker, that some people wanted us to withdraw this case. I'm also aware, because I saw a draft, that some people had rewarded the consent. The only consent that is acceptable to these very troublesome clients of Senator Omogeni is a consent on the prayers in our petition. If they allow the prayers we have sought about Article 110, Article 109 and 114, we are happy to consent that the petition be allowed as we have prayed. Mr. Speaker, can you imagine the proposal and bill drafted by Senator Sakaja and I on how you and Senator and Speaker Muturi should sit is also a money bill. That is how sad this matter is. Mr. Speaker, somebody quoted the advisory opinion number 2. Advisory opinion number 2, this is what it says in paragraph 102. With a good speaker, you will find anything about security, public administration that concerns counties. And therefore, I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that Senator Omogeni comes back to us as his clients after he has made his submissions, not before. Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Mwaura, 2 minutes, and then Chila Yako. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have been here before, and I think possibly our counterparts in the National Assembly can see that maybe the courts will agree with us. I remember very well when I was seated in the Rules and Procedure Committee of the National Assembly, a suggestion was made to have co-sponsorship of bills, as Senator Omogeni has said. But because of the capricious nature of the debate between these two houses, that was actually, it was turned down. And so therefore, Mr. Speaker, it's only in order if the prayers in the consent of the National Assembly are submitted in court for the court to actually rule on them. And in that regard, also, in our submission, we make it very clear in terms of the courts properly and definitely defining what is a money bill and what is a bill concerning county in their own interpretation, because that is actually their prerogative within the law. And then only after that, Mr. Speaker, using the court's judgment, can we then amend the standing orders? Because, Mr. Speaker, if we allow a gentleman's agreement, it has been reneged before. And we can go on and on and on, including agreeing to give monies for oversight for this Senate. Right now, Mr. Speaker, by dint of insisting on our role, we are augmenting the relevance and indeed the place of the Senate. And so therefore, any consent thereof, even when it is coming on the heels of the division of revenue, the current third generation formula as per Article 203, 204, I think it is important that we allow the courts to rule on this matter, and then now we can come back and argue on a gentleman's argument. We cannot trust people who before have actually reneged on what we've agreed. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Finally, Senator Ayako, we have to make progress.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to make a few remarks on this matter. Mr. Speaker, I have not robbed for a long time. It was regarding this matter that I decided to look for my robe and go to court under the leadership of our minority leader and, of course, the lead counsel, Senator Omogeni. I think I want to congratulate them for standing firm. I want to state, Mr. Speaker, that my reading of the behavior of the National Assembly and its leadership is it's too little, too late. Mr. Speaker, there is a remote appearance of goodwill on their part, but it's not backed with honesty and action. And I want to say that because if you look at their submissions, and I've looked at them, the submissions run contrary to an admission that they have been unfair to us. Number two, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the recent behavior of the National Assembly leadership by declaring some of our bills that they are money bills, it appears that if we do not have the force of a full judgment of court, the consent that we are looking for may smell rosy, but may be full of thorns. So I want to agree with my colleagues who are of the view, and I'm of that view, that if there is any consent to be entered, let it be in the words and spirits of the prayers that we made in court. Anything that is less than that may be deceptive, may be intended to lull us to sleep. We know where we came from, a situation of desperation where senators were marching on the streets. Senators are not supposed to march on the streets. We are supposed to legislate here, and we are supposed to negotiate and compromise here. So I want to conclude by thanking the team that has started this matter in the earlier Senate, and the team where I fall in that has continued in this matter. But let the consent reflect the prayers we took to court. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of Majority.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I think just to support, I don't know how we got there, but just to support the idea, Mr. Speaker, that the leadership plus the Speaker of this august House cannot betray their members. And so, Mr. Speaker, the impression that maybe some of us in leadership have quietly gone behind the membership, that does not happen. It cannot even happen because this House is alert and cannot happen. Speaker, I want to use this opportunity to congratulate our legal team and the people who are handling this matter, and know that we will be there when we are needed to make sure that the consent order is in line with what the members wanted. Speaker, I earlier on rose to ask for for an adjournment. And Mr. Speaker, when I asked it in the manner that I did, you can tell, Mr. Speaker, that a number of our members were provoked. And I want to assure them that I'm a seasoned legislator, and I would know exactly how to go about it. But I like the advice from my junior colleague, including the two senator. They can also begin to advise us on these matters. Speaker, Speaker, having said that, I pass on to standing order number 32, Speaker. I beg to move. I beg to move.
What was the point of order? Just speak from there. Yeah.
On the issue that had been canvassed widely, I thought you were going to make a closing. You were to make a statement. I don't know even at this point, but so that we close on that issue, because, and I would like Senator Orengo to listen to me on this one. Senator Orengo,
I thought I would give her.
Being our senior counsel and Omogeni, Mr. Speaker, it is therefore, and particularly for Omogeni, the sentiment of this House is to the effect, therefore, that any consent that, Mr. Speaker, will be sought by National Assembly. Am I, in order to say, summing up this process, the House has concluded that the proceedings should progress tomorrow, like it should, the highlighting of the submissions, because I think that was supposed to be done tomorrow, and that we will not continue pursuing that consent that is being sought by National Assembly, particularly because, Mr. Speaker, I should have disclosed further that I know the terms of the consent, that Mr. Speaker, have been proposed by National Assembly, and this House has made a resolution and members have submitted that we cannot trust a situation where we are going to file this consent and then withdraw the main petition. Then ultimately, when they will not follow.
So what's your point of order?
What we have agreed on.
What's your point of order, Senator Murkomen?
Am I in order to say, Mr. Speaker, that, and I thought you were going to sum up, that from the clients of Senator Mogeni, that now he has full instructions that he should not pursue that route that the National Assembly was proposing.
Okay, I think they have heard, and you remember, originally this was a point of order. And Keriot was asking me to include in my communication when I address the House next. But I think they have heard what we've said. I'll also put it in my communication. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 32, I beg to move that the Senate do now adjourn. The Speaker, this is to allow for members to retreat into a Kamukunji Speaker or a meeting, an informal meeting, to hear a report or get a report, Mr. Speaker, on the basis of the negotiations that have been going on about the third generation formula, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what happened was we left here the last week is that, Mr. Speaker, the committee of 6 and 6, the 12-member committee, at that point, Mr. Speaker, agreed and asked the leadership. They asked us, challenged us, Mr. Speaker, to go and meet with the executive and to be able, Mr. Speaker, to see if some extra monies can be given to add to what has been given so that we can now formulate afresh how to divide this money among counties. And so, Mr. Speaker, it's just for us to go and get that report back because this happened and we have a report to give. And so I do not want to belabor the point that we will then move into a session where you allow us to move into a session where we can informally discuss this matter. So, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and again ask Minority Leader to second. Thank you.
I propose the question, which is that now the House adjourns. I put the question, which is that the House now adjourns. As many of that opinion say aye. As many of a contrary view say nay. The ayes have it.